Welcome to National Geographic's Wonders of the Universe, narrated by Neil deGrasse Tyson. Please put on your 3D glasses now. My name is, because you've been staring at it for the last 10 minutes, my name is Lindsay Smith. I'm TurboDog on Twitter and IRC and whatnot. I'm a product owner at Puppet Labs, mostly on the enterprise side. It's my job to figure out what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, and how we can do it better, and then find new problems to solve for you. So definitely, please come and find me. I'd love to talk to all of you about what you like, what you don't like what I said. The things that you do like that we do, the things that we don't, what you wish we would do. The great tradition of public camps around the world is that we start with a poll. So raise your hand if you're using Puppet now. Okay, that's a fair bit. That's about 2/3. Who is using some other automation tool? That's about 1/3. Who's using automation, but it's something that you wrote yourself? Okay. Don't be afraid. Who feels that they really don't have any automation? This is not, come on, be brave, there you go. Be proud. You're in the right place, you're amongst friends. Okay, so last question. Who do you feel is new to Puppet? Look around. If you're not raising your hand, look around. This is very different. A few years ago, Puppet these things were small communities of very, very engaged, committed experts. That has very much changed. There's a lot of people here where they're relatively new to Puppet, which is really exciting. But just kind of be aware that this is how the community that you're part of has changed over time, and will continue to kind of change and grow. The reason why there's so many people who are new to Puppet and are interested in automation, because there's a lot going on. These are the days of more services, more servers. There's higher expectations of the IT organization. There's no future in which IT is smaller or matters less. And simultaneously, there's a ton of emerging technology that we need to wrap our heads around. I saw something on Hacker News. It's like, can I use this? Is this useful? Well, maybe it's interesting, but will it actually be beneficial? Or if I sink a bunch of effort into this thing, will I regret it later? Are there ways that I could tell up front before I sink a bunch of time into it? The life of a sysadmin has always been difficult, tedious, frustrating, thankless. And no one notices when things go right. And to be the exception to the rule, I'm going to thank Chris and Russ for unbreaking the AV, which wouldn't come up when we went to test everything. So thank you, Chris and Russ. They pulled it off when it counted. But being a sysadmin, there's continual pressure to do more, do it faster, do it cheaper, make fewer mistakes, and constant interruption totally leaves you in a state of reaction. There's one study that says sysadmins are interrupted every 15 minutes. There's another study that says once you've been interrupted, it takes 30 minutes to regain your focus. How can you be forward-looking and work out how to solve bigger problems when your focus is constantly being stolen? Being a sysadmin has always been tough, but today there's an entirely new driver that's ratcheting up the pressure on you. It goes beyond just that there are more servers and switches and databases and load balancers. Today, most companies realize that their technology must be a competitive advantage. Software is eating the world is Mark Andreessen's idea that every company is a software company, or any company that wants to survive very far into the 21st century. What you see are examples of precision agriculture. There's a ton of software in and around that combine in that field. I think this is in Alabama or something. This is a cotton field. The people that are the best at this, using the technology and the knowledge that they gain, they're going to have the best yields for the lowest cost. And that just doesn't mean, the only implication of that is not just they can produce more stuff more cheaply. With enough information, you could change the constraints that you had previously been limited by. So, for example, maybe they can eliminate the use of pesticides, but they keep the yields high enough so that they can profitably grow an organic crop. But it's not just raw tech. If you stand up Hadoop cluster, you stuff a bunch of data into it, that doesn't make you smarter. The technology needs to be a lever to make your business more competitive. It's speed, agility, focus, and alignment on things that actually make a difference to your organization. So speed is how fast can you get something out, but not just get it out, but learn from it. Agility is how fast can you course correct based on what you just learned. Focus is where are the current bottlenecks and how do we mitigate them. And alignment, finally, is how well do you really understand what makes a difference for your business. Maybe it's high availability for a service. Maybe it's launching the Chinese language version of your Android app. You ever tried to explain the value of moving your organization to a DevOps culture to your boss? Did that go real well? Did you move your arms? But DevOps. The State of DevOps report that we produced should be something you have in your back pocket next time. It's got large type, it's got pretty pictures, it's got dollar signs. It's perfect for managers like me everywhere. I know who I am. In 2014, there were 9,200 respondents, which we think gives us a nice statistical basis for drawing conclusions. And actually, there's some really nice blog posts about how they did the statistical analysis of the data set, if you're interested in that sort of thing. But for the first time, we have data that tells us that IT performance has a real impact on business performance. Number one, IT performance predicts organizational performance. Companies with high-performing IT departments are twice as likely to significantly exceed their targets for productivity, market share, and profitability compared to those with lower-performing IT departments. And second, job satisfaction is the #1 predictor for high organizational performance. Job satisfaction correlates strongly with the tools, processes, and culture of DevOps. I think we've largely known this for a long time, maybe in our guts. But DevOps is a major worldwide movement now, and we don't just see it at the coal face. We hear about it in the boardroom of very, very large companies. I can't stand here and not say the word cloud a bunch. So cloud continues to change things, but you have to break it down. Infrastructure as a service enables companies to move faster, burst workloads, and evolve and react much quickly, but you need to understand where are the right places to put the right workloads. So maybe you put your CI test infrastructure in AWS, you do your big data, you get your Hadoop cluster in GCE, and you don't know, I'll skip that. But your new customer-facing apps are in your self-service private cloud, but your legacy apps are still running on old metal and you wish it would all die in a fire. On the other hand, SaaS enables companies to successfully outsource services that they don't need to be core competencies for your company, that email, file serving, and stuff like that. That is sysadmin knowledge work, and in a really specific way that IT can add value to the business. Focus on and enable what would drive revenue, again, like the Chinese language version of your Android app versus keeping Exchange alive or SAP. As evidence of this, something we, and maybe you have personal experience with this, we saw frequently, companies are starting to back away from that early 2000s trend of outsourced IT. Maybe in the early 2000s that sort of made sense because you had to be kind of a little bit good at everything, and it was really hard to be a little bit good at everything. So they said, well, if we can't be good at everything, we'll let somebody else that specializes in it do it. You had to email, SAP, the website, a few business applications, desktops. There's just a hodgepodge of stuff. And it wasn't clear just how important that was that the company have that in-house. But what we see today is that companies are really, really desperate to get out of those long-term contracts. And there's a very specific reason. They want their own people to focus on the few things that matter, and they want to outsource the rest. So this is why getting out of insourcing is really big, and Salesforce is really big. Let Salesforce and Workday worry about CRM and the HR system, but y'all worry about the things that really matter to us as an organization. Also, couldn't have a slide without containers. Containers. The kind of discussion here, there's a lot of promise. There's greater reliability, faster releases, more distributed architectures, but it's driving a complete restructuring of applications, and the development pipeline, and it requires a completely new tool chain. Just same point as with the cloud. You have to understand what the implications are for your particular workloads and your applications, and what are the benefits that you expect to see. Do we need to rewrite this app as a microservice? Could it support immutable infrastructure? What are all these containers going to run on? Does this mean we can kick out VMware? You know, kind of on top of this, you know, there's a lot of discussion about it, but it's still very, very nascent, and there's a ton going on all at once. So I guess the way I like to think about it is like there's at least 100 projects in the container Docker Rocket space. I'm pretty sure that one of those is going to be a billion-dollar company, but I have no idea which one it is. So this is very, very much a kind of stay tuned and see what happens kind of thing. Finally, shadow IT is the competition that you have when IT can't keep up. You know, your developers, your marketing teams, and so forth, they'll work around you if you say no too much, if they think you're slow or you're perceived as being too rigid. The classic stories are you come into the office one day and you've got a $100,000 bill from Amazon because the devs spun up 1,000 machines, or the marketing department has all of its documents in a shared Dropbox account, and then someone lost their iPad and they've all been leaked. So that sets the table for why a company like Puppet Labs matters. In short, Puppet automates repetitive procedures and manual tasks so that you can focus on the things that matter most. This is interesting to managers and executives because there's a tangible financial return to be had, but the tools that we actually make, that Puppet Labs actually makes, are meant for people like you, the ones that actually work in the trenches. Puppet helps you automate all the things. It's make rapid and repeatable changes, automate the management of common configurations and environments that gives you greater reliability and consistency. And reliability and consistency means fewer calls at 3 a.m. Automating the management of your infrastructure so that you can deploy more frequently and confidently. And confidence is really important here because there's no point in being more effective at something that's not working. Specifically, Puppet does automate all the things. It's users, groups, firewalls, DNS packages. You know, you get the picture. Every IT shop in the universe has these things. And if you're not using automation, you can sink a massive amount of time into managing just that. And for the most part, these things don't do any work. Kernel settings don't do any work for you. Groups don't do any work for you. It's the actual application or service that your business wants. That's the work. That's where the money is made. And Puppet does this across OSs, physical, virtual, cloud, network, Cisco switches, F5 load balancers, storage devices, and on all the way up through the application stack. And you know, the benefits of broad adoption of automation are increased speed, productivity, and better insight. Speed, again, get the new stuff out more frequently so that you can learn and react faster. Productivity is have confidence that the decisions that you've made stay made, even at scale and even while you're asleep. And finally, insight is really know what's what in your infrastructure. A really good example of actually all three of these is when Heartbleed vulnerability happened earlier in the year. So there's, you know, story on TechCrunch, the boss comes in, holy cow, there's this Heartbleed thing. You have to go figure out, Kent, you've got to go figure out what is our exposure to Heartbleed. You can walk over to the Puppet Enterprise Console in live management. You can browse resources. It will tell you exactly what versions of OpenSSL you have in your infrastructure. Okay, 10 minutes later, you trot back to your boss. All right, we've got 348 machines that have a vulnerable version of OpenSSL. I know exactly where, you know, what their names are, and I know what their state is. Like, great job, Ken. You trot back over to your laptop. In 5 minutes, you've written the Puppet code that updates you to a not vulnerable version of SSL. Run that Puppet code against your whole fleet. Go back to live management. Browse resources again. It will tell you exactly what versions of OpenSSL are in your environment. You can say you have a list that says, I can prove that amongst the servers that we manage with Puppet, none of them have a vulnerable version of OpenSSL. And the total time to do that was really, really quick. And so Kent looked really great in front of his boss. The boss looks good because they remediated a vulnerability, and then they can get back to their lives. That's the value of automation. It's like taking all of that lost time and giving it back to you so that you can focus on those more important things that are like where you actually use your brain rather than you're just doing a repetitive task over and over again. And the way Puppet approaches solving that problem is a declarative one rather than procedurally scripting what you want to happen. You define a desired state and Puppet makes that happen. This allows you to define things once and you can apply it across the whole infrastructure. After you define what you want your infrastructure to look like, Puppet can test those changes to determine the impact, and then you can choose to enforce the configurations, and whether you test or enforce, Puppet gives you a report back on all the differences and any changes that are made. Okay, so I talked about the current IT landscape, how Puppet fits into that, and I'll talk a little bit about how it actually goes about doing that. This is the canonical example of Puppet code. If you've played with Puppet for more than 10 minutes, you've seen this. This is how you manage SSH with Puppet. So obviously, if you want to have the SSH server on your server, you need the package. It's got to be installed. Okay, we got that taken care of. Well, it's a service, so it's got to be running. All right, we take care of that. Well, if the machine reboots, we want it to start it automatically. Okay, we got that taken care of too. As a matter of fact, we also want to manage the SSHD config file. Okay, that's good. But if later on we go and change the configuration file, we want the service to reboot automatically. So that's exactly what this code does. Super simple, very easy to understand. Puppet code is very easy to get started with and get real work done. And the language is still flexible enough to allow custom and complex operations using programming language like constructs. And a lot of time, Puppet code is described as executable documentation. And this is literally something you can pass to your auditors. If you're in a security, audit, compliance type environment, it's pretty common where you can sit down with an auditor, here's our Puppet code, here's our written policy, here's our Puppet code that implements that policy, and here's the run reports that show the machines in our infrastructure match that policy because Puppet didn't change anything. And they'll scratch the beard, and they go, yeah, you're fine. Rather than them having to go out somewhere or physically get access or electronically get access to these boxes and go and validate compliance. Very, very powerful tool for communication. Puppet code also lets you make decisions based on the characteristics of the server. This is an example, switching on whether it's a Windows box or it's a flavor of Linux. Just something else I want to call out. Like in the 3 Linux includes, I mean, you can turn a real box into something with that. Like you have a little base configuration, some users, things like that, a few parameters to Apache and MySQL, but in many environments, this is all it takes to turn, a VM or a metal server of completely unknown state, run Puppet once, and what comes out is production-ready infrastructure. It's very common. Finally, here's a Windows-specific example. This manages making the box an IIS web server, and because it's Windows, it handles the reboot that's mandatory after installing .NET. And I want to pause for a second to talk a little bit about Windows. And I'm going to go back into poll mode. Who has Windows servers in their environment? Wow, that's larger than I expected. Not like way larger. I didn't expect like 5 hands, but I expected about 50-50, but that was clearly more. Are you managing any of those Windows servers with Puppet? That's about what I expected. That's a very, very small but awesome set of hands. Okay, so if you've got Windows servers, do you plan to manage them with Puppet? Okay, all right, come on, let's do this. Okay, fine. So, okay, I'll get into that. But if you have specific questions, Josh Cooper's here. He's longtime knows Windows very well, longtime Windows agent developer. If you have any questions about that, what our level of support is, he's the person, and I'm happy to talk to you about it as well. But final question: does anybody expect their Windows server footprint in their estate to grow? That's about 10 or dozen. Okay, so that was 80 have it, 10 or 12 say, I don't know, say 20%, 15% want it to grow. Interesting. Obviously, Puppet comes out of the Linux world. That's primarily what we're known for. But over the last couple of years, we worked very, very hard to make Windows a first-class citizen, and I think we have a lot of proof points about, that we put our money where our mouth is. So, well, we've got people like Josh Cooper. We have full-time Windows agent and module developers. Windows is one of the most popular search terms on the Puppet Forge. We have a great set of Windows-specific supported and approved modules, and I'll tell you a little bit later about what's special about a supported module and an approved module. And there's still, like Puppet's open source. There's a strong Windows open source community around Windows module development, such as like the folks at OpenTable, or maybe if you're using Windows, you've heard of Chocolatey, which is package management for Windows. It's basically Yum for Windows. Its primary author is Rob Reynolds, who works for us as a Windows developer, agent developer. There's a whole Windows-focused section on the Puppet Labs doc site. For enterprise customers, we just released a brand new SQL Server module. There's a Puppet Enterprise Master on the Azure Store. And finally, as of last year, we have Windows admin specific training courses. In the past, it was, everyone drop into bash, fire up Vim, we're going to go manage us some SSHD. And the Windows guys were like, it's not their fault that, that they don't know. I'm totally not being sarcastic. Totally not being, it's a different operating system. It's a different tool chain. So there's the perfectly earnestly, it's not their fault that they don't know Vim and don't know SSHD. So there's whole classes that are a whole course that's organized around their problems, their use cases, and their tool chain. Okay. So those are some examples of Puppet code that defines how your server should be configured. Now we're going to talk a little bit about like the mechanism that this all occurs. Your Puppet code usually resides on the Puppet server, the Puppet master. This approach offers better security. You don't have to manage replicating code to a bunch of hither, thither, and yon, and it's just all around easier to use. You can write your own modules, you can, or so most people do, they adopt a lot of content from the Puppet Forge, they write things that are unique to them, and you just got this palette of stuff that you can choose from. For practically any IT tool, Puppet module content will already exist for it. So whether you use custom code or modules for the Forge, this is how Puppet, it places your infrastructure into the desired state. Every 30 minutes, which is the default, or on demand, the Puppet agent checks in with the master and asks for its configuration. The agent submits facts about itself. What is my operating system? How many CPUs do I have? You can define custom facts like what are the applications that run on me? What data center am I in? What business unit am I in? All that goes to the Puppet master. There's the set of classes that are applied to the server. You get the set of facts. The Puppet master compiles something called a catalog, which is the ultimate source of truth about what state should this box be in. The catalog goes down to the agent. The agent evaluates itself against the catalog. Maybe everything is just fine and it's in the desired state and it says no changes. Or maybe there's 2 things that need to be changed. And if you're running in Puppet and no-op, it will tell you Puppet would have changed this. If you're running in enforced mode, it said Puppet did change this. And all that information goes back, back to the Puppet master as the report. And kind of one advantage is, say one of the resources that you're managing is a package, but the package isn't in the repo. Puppet will do all the other stuff. It'll tell you, you wanted me to install this thing, it wasn't there. Then you go, oh, okay, we forgot to put the package in the repo. You do that, next time Puppet runs, it sees it, and it goes and enforces it for you. PuppetDB is the foundation for Puppet and Puppet Enterprise data storage. It's the foundation really for all of the reporting and analytics. It stores all of the configurations, the facts, and the reports for your server, and it basically knows just about everything there is to know about your infrastructure. mCollective is our command and control tool for parallel real-time execution across the network. It also has real-time discovery of all the nodes and the resources on the node. It drives the orchestration engine in Puppet Enterprise. And in the Heartbleed example, that was the way that you would go out and collect all those resources from your infrastructure. Puppet was on an individual server. Puppet would tell you my version of OpenSSL is whatever, but mCollective was the thing that said, hey, everybody out there, go and tell me about your packages And I'm going to centralize that, and then we're going to build a report out of it in Puppet Enterprise. Puppet's been around for a while. 7, 8 something years, I think, when Luke started it. Needless to say, the original code base of the Puppet master server does a lot of heavy lifting, but it was getting pretty long in the tooth. It had a good run. But it wasn't very performant, it wasn't very resilient. So at the end of last year, we introduced the next generation Puppet server. It's architected for greater scale, resiliency, insight, and simpler integration. It's much faster. You can easily see a 3x performance increase over the old Ruby master. It allows us to have more composable and modular services on the master side. And this provides the foundation for us to provide higher scalability, resiliency, and higher availability. If you're into the technical details of the master, of the Puppet server and the master rewrite, it's on the JVM stack. It's largely written in Clojure and JRuby. So Puppet lets you define what you want your infrastructure to look like, and then it actually goes and does that for you. Now, imagine moving from beyond automating the configuration of a single system to a related set of systems, to a whole service, then composing a complete application from the service, and ultimately all the applications that are in your infrastructure across physical, virtual, cloud, servers, OS, storage, and networking devices, all the constituent parts that make all those applications that your business actually cares about, because they don't really care about load balancers. That's the foundation. That's what the foundation that Puppet provides leads to, and kind of where we're directionally headed as a company. So I want to take a little bit of a look at the other facets of the Puppet ecosystem that move you beyond just managing single servers. The first thing is Razor. This is rules-based provisioning for bare metal and virtual servers. So no more standing in front of a rack of new machines with a golden image DVD. It feeds new metal servers directly into your Puppet infrastructure. And I talked about like how fast, that going from machines in an unknown state to production ready. With something like Razor, you can go from racked and stacked servers. If they're on the network, you can turn them into production ready infrastructure very, very quickly. In many cases, it makes physical machines as easy to provision as VMs. And actually, because like at least in VMware, you can pixie boot those and provision with Razor from that. A lot of people actually use that. They'll use Razor as the thing that kicks off creation of new VMware VMs. Hyra lets you separate your configuration policy, that's the Puppet code, from the specific configuration data. So for example, in your Puppet code, you declare that we want to manage JVM heap size. And in Hyra, for like individual servers, you can specify, well, this one gets 2 gig, this one gets 1 gig. Hyra also lets you manage the differences between similar environments. Say you have a single application, you have a single set of Puppet code that manages the infrastructure, but you have a dev, test, and prod environments for this application as it gets promoted through. Hyra is really good at managing the differences between what's different about the configuration specifics of dev, test, and prod. Finally, we talked about moving beyond managing single servers. So again, say you have that same dev, test, prod deployment tier, which far and away most people have. Puppet code and Hyra are really helpful in kind of managing that. R10K also helps you with this. R10K is a promotion and deployment tool that your developers have had something like this for a really long time, where production is the oldest version, it's older and stable, known good, it stays there, and then you have a test environment which has newer code but has some assurances that it's not completely explosive. It gets tested and eventually gets promoted in production. And there's dev code, which could be who knows what. It could blow up at any time. But point being is the developers have this workflow. I write some new code. I have a way to test it out. When it meets a certain quality standard, it gets promoted into the next environment. So now it's in test. It has a higher quality standard now. When it passes those tests, it gets promoted into production. R10K gives you this for your Puppet code, so for your infrastructure. So in the same way your developers promote app code, you can promote new versions of your infrastructure towards production. So we want Puppet open source projects to be the de facto standard for configuration management. We want it to be on every single device you encounter in your working environment. Puppet Labs is a commercial software company. We make most of our money selling software, and that lets us do a couple of important things. Namely, number one, it feeds our family, many of which live here in Portland, and it allows us to continue to open source the majority of our technology and innovation. The projects associated with Puppet are all very powerful individually, and as a commercial software company, we want to build on top of those projects to provide complete solutions that people are willing to pay for because it's clearly better than their current state. Puppet Enterprise today is our core product. It has all the combined capabilities of the Puppet projects plus additional workflow-specific applications that are built on top of it. Node Manager is the first Puppet app. It enables you to adopt a more dynamic cattle not pets approach to managing your infrastructure. And as a rule, we don't recommend that you have a personal relationship with individual servers, and you work to root out the snowflakes in your environment. In the Node Manager, you manage infrastructure based on node capabilities rather than identity or just IP name. For example, key characteristics of the system, what its operating system is, what data center it is, what's the geolocation, what's its IP address, what app is it associated with, what role is it? Oh, it's an app server. It's a West Coast data center app server for app foo in the QA environment. Oh, okay, I know exactly what to do with that machine. That's a more powerful and dynamic and sane way to manage your herd of cattle. Combined with Puppet configuration management, it's very easy to kind of manage and classify these servers with little to no manual effort. And this was released towards the end of last year in Puppet Enterprise. And kind of over time, we'll continue to roll out new Puppet apps. And on the enterprise side, all of them will have role-based access control built in. This is Puppet Server operational reporting, which, not surprisingly, debuted with the new Puppet Server. The new Puppet Server provides a lot of facilities to track internal metrics on the running system, so we can keep track of what's going on inside in ways that just simply weren't possible in the past. The metrics are things like active requests, request duration, execution time, compilation load, most expensive function. Very quickly after we released this, a customer called like, oh, my Puppet runs are taking forever. It's like 15 minutes, and it used to be 30 seconds. We're like, in the past, it would have been really, really difficult to try and find the root cause of something where they've got like an order of magnitude longer Puppet runs than they'd seen in the past. And with this was actually relatively easy. They had a very expensive hierarchical lookup that they were calling recursively. And it blew 30 seconds into 15 minutes. And it was once like, oh, okay. Then it was relatively straightforward to kind of unwind what the problem area was. The metrics in Puppet Enterprise, the server metrics, they're available for monitor and learning and third-party apps, and there's also prepackaged graphite reports, and that's what you see there, or Grafana. This is the event inspector in Puppet Enterprise. It's a visual representation of change across your environment. You need to quickly know what's happening in infrastructure, and that's either to reassure yourself that things are fine, or understand that something is wrong, and then understand what action you need to take. So it helps you identify what changed, where, and how through kind of a visual inspection of changes by classes, nodes, and resources. So all of the answers to life's important questions are in your Puppet Run report. So say you have 1,000 servers, Puppet runs every half an hour. You have 48,000 Puppet runs per day. The answers to your question are in those 48,000 run reports. A tool like Event Inspector digests that, lets you find, like I said, it will help reassure you that things are fine, or help you immediately identify what's wrong, where it is, and what you need to go do. Finally, Puppet Forge is the focus of the content side of the Puppet ecosystem. Historically, it's really just been a place to search for and download modules. But this past year was a really, really huge leap forward for Puppet Forge. We just passed the 3,000 module mark very recently. Early last year, we launched, for Puppet Enterprise customers, we launched the supported modules program. So like Hunter, right there, he introduced himself. He worked on a lot of those modules. So supported modules are very high quality content largely written by us, heavily QA by us. We make support, we'll pick up the phone and support enterprise customers. We'll make guarantees about what versions of operating systems of Puppet that they work on. And it's generally the things that almost every single person in the universe has in their server-side IT estate. That's at around 20 today, and that continues to grow over time. What we more recently launched was the approved modules program. So we have, like I said, we have 3,000 modules on the Forge. How do you find out whether one's any good or not? So approved module program is about helping to find really engaged contributors who actively manage and update and support their modules and meet a high quality bar. Do they have good tests? Do they have good documentation? So the approved module program, it launched late last year, was like November or something like that. But it's already 40 modules and growing. So if you're a module author or you have particular Puppet code that you're really enthusiastic about, check into the approved program. And then finally, there's also brand new is a rating system on the Forge. Again, we're working very hard. There's 3,000 modules out there. If you've got a technology, there's a module for it. There's probably 5. There may be 500. We don't want you to have to go through a ton of work to figure out which is the right one. So a lot of this the approved module program, ratings, and other things that we're cooking up is about helping you find high quality content quickly. Okay, so what? I talked a bunch about Puppet code, I talked about Puppet agent runs, and I talked about a bunch of other technology. Why does any of this really matter? What does it actually do for an organization when it's implemented, and what does it mean for you personally? This is why it matters for your organization. Deploying code 30 times more frequently is the difference between deploying once or twice a year and once a week. Second, if you only deploy once a year, you better get it right, because it's a really long time until you get your next shot. You end up spending a ton of time getting big bang releases perfectly right. But investing in automation is a virtuous cycle here. Smaller deployments are more likely to succeed. Iteratively reducing deployment failures increases your confidence that your deployments will succeed. When you're more confident in your deployments, you will deploy more frequently, and the more frequently you can deploy, you can learn, and your whole business can learn, did we do the right thing? Do people like this? Did they hate it? Okay, they hate it, but in 2 more weeks or another week, we can release something that we think will be better. And finally, clearly, like the broad market values companies that prove that their technology is a differentiator for them over their competitors. Okay, so that's the answer to so what for a business. But what's the answer for you as an individual? That's pretty clear as well. A recent Dice.com, it's a job hunt thing website. Sorry if anybody works for Dice.com. That wasn't very good, very glowing description of what you do. Especially because they said Puppet was the #1 tech job skill, so I should be a lot better about describing what they do. But anyway, there is a lot of demand for Puppet skills, and I'm pretty sure we can agree on the conclusion that that can have a very real impact on your job opportunities. But do note that every organization is different, and the specific ways that Puppet can benefit you kind of depends on the character of your organization, where you are, and just a lot of factors like that. Who are the people that you have? Here's just a couple of examples. Pinterest, everybody's heard of Pinterest. They have predictable spikes of traffic and lulls during the day. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, evening. It's not surprising. The obvious strategy here is, well, we'll just spin up more stuff in the morning, and then in the US evening, we'll spin it down. They're so highly automated with Puppet, they can very closely match the spike curve that they actually save hundreds of thousands of dollars just more closely shaping the bringing up and bringing down of servers to the daily spikes that they see. So that's that IT knowledge work. It's not spinning up machines and spinning down machines. That's not knowledge work. If you can fast follow the business curve, that's where the value is. Second is CERN. This is the largest Puppet installation in the world. It's north of 100,000 servers on a large Hadron Collider project. I don't know if anybody actually works in high performance computing, but Puppet is actually very, very popular there because they're constantly destroying boxes. They need build it up, use it, tear it down. Build it up, use it, tear it down. They do this constantly at great scale. Finally, Bank of America. It's a classic enterprise company. They have hundreds, if not thousands, of business applications. A lot of it's written and hosted in-house. They have, hordes of developers, bajillions of servers. But they're demonstrating that you can be really successful and show a lot of improvement with Puppet Enterprise. And a heavily siloed, territorial, who knows how many business units they have and how many lines of business they have. They highly heterogeneous environment. They have every technology that was been sold in the last 30 years. They have lots of Linux, they have lots of Windows, and they just have lots of everything. But they're very happy and they're very successful with Puppet Enterprise. Okay, so regardless of where you are in your IT automation journey, I think the one thing we can say, and we'd be pretty sure about, is we're actually just at the beginning of all of this. There's a lot of innovation that's going to happen in the next few years. So, my call to action is keep learning, stay interested, stay involved, stay flexible. I mean, that's what we want to do as a company. So, so stay tuned. So, what is some things that you can do next? I would just make yourself part of the Puppet community. We have Puppet Labs has the strongest community of practitioners out there by far. It's a great place where experts are welcoming. They're willing to share their experience, knowledge, code, feedback on your code. It's really something that's right there for you to take advantage of. And it is the people that make it special. And I mean, your presence here today makes you part of that community. It makes it grow and it keeps it going. So again, I thank you for being here. We also, because the Puppet skills are so valuable to you, we make it really easy for you to learn online. There's free online learning courses. They're like kind of compact, really focused nuggets that you can do with exercises and quizzes. You can do it from home, on the couch, wherever, and they're all free. So that's a plus. A really, really great way to get smarter about Puppet is through training and certification. Obviously, this is a no-brainer, especially if you can get someone else to pay for it. It might be worth it for yourself. Courses are offered in person around the world. We have so things have kind of changed if you've been around for a while. Today, this is kind of the sequence of, well, it's not a sequence, but it's the structure, the way we structure our large courses. There's a fundamentals course that everybody takes. There's also an intro to Puppet. If you have like a manager type, there's like a short intro to Puppet that they can take, like, what the heck is this and what is it for? And then it kind of bifurcates into practitioner and architect. In the past, we had fundamentals, and I think it was Puppet expert, because it was learn how to write Puppet code, and it's like really, really learn how to write Puppet code. And what we've seen emerge in the last year or so is there's still that learn Puppet code, learn how to really, really write Puppet code, because you're going to be doing a lot, it's your job. But there's also this architect kind of persona where I'm in an organization like Bank of America. We've got a lot of teams, we've got a lot of developers, we've got a lot of applications. They have every technology under the sun. This one's .NET, that one's something else, Node and Mongo. And like, what do you do with that? How do you, a small team can easily be effective with Puppet. If it's you and 2 other folks, some Puppet, this is no problem. But you have 30 teams, it's a very different thing. So the Puppet architect is more focused on that sort of thing. Oh, and I want to re-emphasize that, like I said, we have a Windows-specific course again. That the Bash, Vim, SSHD, Apache, HTTPD course just wasn't very effective for a lot of Windows people, and so there is a whole Windows set for them. And I think like now we even offer virtual courses that you don't have to be in Portland or wherever. There are courses they're instructor-led, they're live and in person, but you can attend them remotely. Okay, so after you kind of get your head wrapped around Puppet, the next step is that you should tell us how to be better. A really great way to do that is join the Puppet Test Pilots program. It's the easiest and most direct path for you to influence our products, participate in user research, and help make our products even better. As a product manager, this is unbelievably helpful. How much information and how accurate information we can get from people just like you all around the world. It's great. I know it feels great to be heard, and it's great for me to hear what you have to say so that we can solve problems for you. Drop my water everywhere. Sorry. Hey, we're hiring. We're also based in Portland, where we are right now. So Andrea is here from HR team, and they can kind of point out what are the openings we have today, what might be relevant to you. We have a lot of employees in all different kind of areas of the company. So depending on what your interests are, try and go grab them. If you need help finding that person again, we can do that for you. But come and work for us because it is awesome. And this is just super sweet. So after a few years in the wilderness in San Francisco, PuppetConf 2015 will be in Portland. I think it's in October. They're nodding. So yes, it's in October this year, and you're not going to want to miss it. And okay, let's wrap this up. We talked about the challenges kind of broadly in IT today. We talked about what Puppet is. We talked about the problems that it solves, and we talked about why you should care. When you look at the IT automation space, or when we look at it, we still think that there's a lot of runway in front of us. You might think that a lot of these big problems have already been solved, and it's really just let's nail down the details, and then we're just going to go, beaver away at it. But I think we're just now at the beginning of a much longer and more exciting trip. There's a ton more innovation. There's a ton to learn. There's going to be a ton of change over the next decade. I'm personally very excited by kind of the opportunities and kind of be part of that. But I think collectively we should all kind of like look forward to that journey together. So thanks for your time. Thanks for your support. Thanks for engagement. And thanks for coming out today. And any questions? Getting a mic to you is going to be really difficult, so shout it out and I'll repeat it.
What's the IRC channel?
It's just Pound Puppet, right? Is it Pound Puppet or Pound Puppet Labs? It's Freenode. And there's like Pound Razor. It's pretty straightforward. There's Puppet Dev. Hunter's nodding. Not really committally, but. Anyone else? Yes?
You mentioned containers in the beginning, but I didn't see any of the slides on the top. Does Puppet treat containers the same as VMs?
The short answer is yes. The more complicated is yes asterisk. I mean, I'm sorry, I apologize. So the question was, I waved my arms and said containers for a little while, but I didn't really talk about how Puppet interacts with containers. And the answer is yes, Puppet works in a containerized type environment. I think it's kind of a nuanced question. It depends that, well, those containers have to run on something, and it's something like a server. Okay, well, Puppet manages servers. Your containers are essentially large bits of a server. Okay, well, those need to be managed. Maybe the kind of the emerging pattern is that you wouldn't want to run Puppet or any sort of configuration management inside the container. Maybe you would, I guess it depends. But those things still have to be configured one way or the other, right? Whatever composes the container, that has to be. So that's kind of like the short form. Yeah. And again, like I guess my point was really understand what your use case or cases are and what you expect to get out of it. I mean, I know some people in town, they're running big, relatively monolithic Java apps in containers. They have big bare metal servers, and they have a very small number of containers. It's like, I'm not totally sure why. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they have a plan, but again, anybody else? Yes.
Yeah. So you covered some of the sort of enterprise visualization tools. Do you guys have any plans to offer anything that would integrate or be competitive with, like, say, Mechanical Juju for visualizing deployments of enterprise services?
So I'm not super familiar with Juju. That's like sort of like VCAC, where you kind of model your app. This is my load balancer. This is my.
Define installations like recipes, but they're called charms.
Right. In the near term. I'm sorry, I fail. Something canonical Juju. So the question is, and I didn't even know what what I couldn't remember what Juju was. So the question is, if I understand, is would we offer something where visual that we would model kind of applications? And VMware's VCAC is an example of that. I think that there's others. I think the way we definitely want. No, we are definitively moving up the stack, where instead of individual nodes, we're moving up where you're managing the set of nodes that compose a service, and those services compose a whole application. You know, in three-tier app plus load balancer, right? So you got 4 services, but there's 50 or 5 or 100 servers. We're definitely moving upwards. I don't think that we would approach it from a GUI first perspective. It would probably be the reverse, where we approach this from what is a sensible way for you to model a service and an application composed of services, and that might lead to a GUI, it might not. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that was actually the point was the modeling more. So.
Sweet. Customer validation. Yes?
Yeah, I got a 2-part question. First, can you make the slides available for us, please? And the second part is, what logging mechanisms do you have for deployment failure?
Okay, first question is, can we post the slide, or make the slides available? Generally, we do. We put them on SlideShare. There's Puppet Labs account. Yeah, it'll go up on SlideShare in a few weeks or something. The second one was about logging deployment failure. Yeah. Right, okay. I guess it depends on what you mean by deployment, but every Puppet run, everything that it looks at. So if you're managing 50 things, some files, some packages, some users, services, all that stuff, those are all resources. And every one, the report you get back on a Puppet run tells the story of each one of them. I checked it, and maybe 49 of them are in the state that they should be, but one of them's not. And it would have said, this setting was 10 and it should have been 5. I tried to set it to 5, but it failed. And so you would just get the report that way. Like, it's fine, I did nothing. It wasn't fine, I changed it. I successfully changed it to what it should be, or I tried to change it to what it should be and it failed. Is that kind of what you're asking? Okay, right. Which is different because we were just talking about applications. Application deployment is quite a different kettle of fish. Yes?
The report that you're talking about, is that specific to Puppet Enterprise, or is that in Puppet in general?
The server metrics? Or like what I just spoke about?
I've not been able to find reporting in Puppet proper. Am I missing something?
Okay, so there's the reporting that we were talking about, which is just the Puppet run report. If you do Puppet agent-t on the command line, or just Puppet apply, I mean, that's what you're going to get. That is an agent report. So that's just a bunch of lines that scroll by quickly. And Puppet Enterprise, all that stuff. Well, if you're using Puppet DB, whether that be Puppet Enterprise or Puppet Open Source, all those run reports are going to be in there. On Puppet Enterprise, we have the Enterprise web UI, which has all those reports available to you. I showed you Event Inspector, that's in Puppet Enterprise. There are other open source projects about accessing that report data from Puppet DB. Puppet Board. What else am I thinking? What's Eric Dolan's thing? Is that Puppet Board?
Puppet Explorer.
Puppet Explorer, yep. I'm not sure if I totally answered your question.
I'm not sure either.
Okay, well, I'll be here all day.
Just put it in context, I've been trying to learn how to use Puppet, and I've put together a thing, and I'm having a devil of a time. First of all, it looks like the commands have changed. All the books I can buy that purport to tell me about it are an earlier version. And so
there's one of the book authors here, so he can straighten you out. Hopefully today, it's early. It's only 10:30. Hopefully, yes, exactly. You're in the right place. You're amongst friends. Hopefully Elizabeth will kind of go through the whole Puppet thing, and we can, and things will become more clear. Am I done, or I got one more? One more?
You're done. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.